One of my favorite stories in the Bible involves a cup. A man called Jacob had 12 sons, and for better or worse, he had a favorite, Joseph, the youngest apart from Benjamin. Now, his older brothers were jealous, and to cut a long story short, they sold him as a slave. Now, Joseph was taken into Egypt. As God was intervening, he had risen to become second in Egypt, a prime minister to Pharaoh. Years passed, and there was a famine in Egypt and in the surrounding countries, including where Joseph was from, where his brothers still lived. But as I said, God was intervening and in control. And Joseph had known before of the coming famine and had stored grain in preparation. News of this spread, and people came to Egypt to buy grain, including the very brothers who had sold him as a slave. All of them came, apart from Benjamin, the youngest. They didn't recognize Joseph, or why would they? They probably assumed that he was dead by now, or at best serving some Egyptian master. They didn't understand that the person standing in front of him, this prime minister, this important person, was their brother Joseph. They didn't know that. Now, Joseph gives them the grain, but he insists that if they ever come back, they must bring Benjamin. And sure enough, the grain runs out and they need to come back with Benjamin. Now, all of Joseph's brothers are before him, and Joseph decides to test them. He arranged for his servants to fill their sacks with food, and in every brother's sack, he also puts the money they'd used to buy the grain. And finally, he puts his cup, his silver cup, in Benjamin's sack. And the brothers leave, relieved that they will be able to take Benjamin safely back home to his father. But Joseph sends his servants after them and accuses them of stealing his silver cup. And they're very quick to deny that the cup is in their sacks. And they say, "Why do you say such a thing? Far be it from us that your servant should do such a thing. With whomever of your servant it is found, let him die, and we will also be my lord's slaves." Now Joseph is testing his brothers. He wasn't about to punish them for no reason. They may not have been guilty of stealing his cup, but they were guilty, selling him into slavery, which I'm sure you'll agree is far, far worse. Now, I've got to wonder, how aware are we of our real guilt? The brothers' real guilt was selling Joseph into slavery. Now, I'm sure most of us would acknowledge various faults, but I think we are all going to be in for a shock when one day we stand before God and actions and habits we didn't even consider will be shown to us as sins against a holy God. In Psalm 90, it says this, "You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your countenance." The search went on for the cup, and it went on from the oldest to the youngest. And it won't take much searching to reveal our guilt. God knows it. Jesus said, "You are those who justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. For what is highly esteemed amongst men is an abomination in the sight of God." And the cup is found. And Benjamin is guilty. He's condemned to a life of misery. Now, at this point, all the other brothers would have assumed that he was actually guilty. And Benjamin has been held to one side by the guards. Spears are pointed at them to make sure they all behave. Now, that cup was a symbol of guilt. And the idea of a cup being a symbol of guilt is often found in the Bible. In Revelation, we have the idea of the indignation of God in a cup. And Isaiah mentions a cup of fury. But the reason that I love this story so much is not because of the revenge Joseph had on his brothers. Far from it. For the story doesn't end there. But Judah steps forwards, and Judah says this, "Now therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers." And Judah is willing to take the guilt. It's almost like he's going to take that silver cup of Benjamin, that symbol of a guilt and the symbol of the wrong that Benjamin seemed to have done. And going to take that and he's going to say, "Blame me. Treat it as if the cup was mine. And the story ends well. Joseph reveals himself to his brothers and he forgives his brothers. But that reminds me of another cup that was taken. Before Jesus went to die on the cross, he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, amongst his words of anguish, he said the following: "O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will." Now, this was not a literal cup. This cup caused him to be in sorrow and deep distress. It's really hard to imagine Jesus in deep distress. Why would he be? Was he ever in a situation he couldn't cope with? Storms? He silenced them. Crowds? He spoke to them. Lepers approaching who were contagious? He healed them. But now he's in deep distress. And he tells his disciples why he was sorrowful, for it was unto death. And the cup was the cup of God's wrath, all our sin, all our guilt, and that led him to his death on the cross. And nothing would stop him from taking that cup. When Peter tries to defend him in the garden, Jesus says to Peter, "Put your sword into the sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me?" Now, if the Lord has taken the cup of wrath for us, is there any left for us? Colossians says this: "Having wiped out the handwriting requirement that was against us, which was contrary to us, and he's taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross." As the hymn says this: "Death and the curse were in our cup. O Christ, 'twas full for thee. But thou hast drained the last dark drop. 'Tis empty now for me. That bitter cup, love drank it up. Now blessings draught for me." So a choice lies before us. Two cups. One, the cup of wrath, which we deserve, and another one, which we are offered, a cup of blessing. But it does require us to accept that cup of blessing by faith. Ephesians tells us this: "For by grace you've been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast." The gift, a cup of blessing, has been offered, and like any gift, we need to accept it.